Coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast, the Eagles 2023 schedule is officially out, the toughest when it comes to the strength of their schedule compared to the rest of the NFL. Gino and I's takeaways, win-loss record, predictions, all that and more on this Thursday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
For making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Shout out to the everydayers Monday through Friday. Wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. The schedule is out. Gino, the 2023 Eagles schedule was officially unveiled finally at 8 o'clock after this league just drags out and eventizes pretty much everything. And I get why they do it. This is the last big event of the year until training camp. But the Eagles schedule finally is released, man. We got some reactions today.
The NFL, man, they do an excellent job at doing, honestly, what every other league should do in making this thing a 12-month event. And before too long, Lou, like, when are they just going to do week 1 is announced at 9:10 Eastern, week 2 is announced at 10:05 Eastern, and they just make it an all-day event? It soon enough is going to be there. But we finally got the Eagles one, and man, they talked about it being tough when it comes to strength of schedule. Boy, were they not lying, Lou.
Yeah, for sure, Gino. So we've got a ton of takeaways. Like I said earlier, we're going to do our win-loss predictions as we do every single year. But the Eagles head on the road to start the 2023 season against the New England Patriots, who are honoring Tom Brady, which is going to be interesting and I think a little ironic. You look at the primetime games, week 2, Thursday Night Football against Minnesota, week 3, Monday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, week 7 at home, Sunday Night Football against the Miami Dolphins. Then it's the Super Bowl 57 rematch, week 11, Monday night, Arrowhead against the Chiefs, and then they finish up their primetime games, week 14, Sunday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys. Some other notable things on the schedule: a Christmas game against the New York Giants at home. You've got the Buffalo Bills and the San Francisco 49ers back-to-back at the Link. Weeks 12 and 13, the NFL wants to make sure Brock Purdy's healthy so the 49ers don't complain for another year. And so, Gino, overall, you look at the balance of the schedule, how the NFL did it, I think it's clear that it's a lot harder. After that bye week, week 10, it's a gauntlet where your easier matchups, and by easier, you never really know, this is all on paper, but it looks like it's through the first 8 weeks of the season. So got to stack wins, and for me, I prefer it that way. I want to get out of the gate fast so you don't have these holes to get into later in the year.
You have to really take the 2017 approach, the 2022 approach, where you got out to hot starts, right? I mean, 2017, You're 5-1. Last year, you're going on this undefeated run, which took a while for you to eventually lose to Washington. You don't want to get in that hole like 2018, 2019, 2020, where you have to battle back, especially in this back half stretch, Lou. I mean, you can't afford to, like, let's say you drop somehow one of the first 3 games, and then you drop 2 of the next 3, and then 2 of the next 3. And now you're saying, what? How did we get to this position to start? We have to be who we were to end the year last year, and we have to come out hot because they set you up essentially how a UFC fighter, a boxer gets to that main event, right? Where you start with these undercards, you're playing New England, you're playing Minnesota, you're playing Tampa. Then you start to get to the main card. Okay, now we got our Dallas matchup. We play Miami a couple weeks before that.
And now this main
Yeah, exactly. Now this main card is going to kick off, and we're fighting for belts at this point where you go Kansas City, Buffalo, San Fran, Dallas, Seattle might be that next team to challenge you in the NFC. New York, Arizona, New York. Man, you want to talk about the Eagles not playing anybody? If there's any discussion at the end of this year with the Eagles finishing potentially 14-3, 13-4, that they didn't play anybody after this stretch, they truly will warrant that respect if they are able to come out with that caliber of wins over these teams. And let's say they have 12 or 13 wins, Lou. That's a big boy way to play some football. And it's going to be tough, but down the stretch. But after that bye week, man, you better be ready to go. You better be healthy. The depth better be ready. It's going to be a tough test.
For sure. And that's what happens when you get a first place schedule. That's what happens when you are the hunted and not the
Hmm.
hunter as you
Hmm.
were last year. So that's just the reality. And yeah, it looks tough playing the Chiefs, Bills, and Niners, and Cowboys and Seahawks. But Gino, got news for you. Those teams are saying, damn, we got to go on the road to play the Philadelphia Eagles, or we've got
Very
to
true.
host Jalen Hurts and the Birds this year. So
Hmm.
I think that's the point, too, is outside of the Chiefs, this is the top team in the NFL. So, but yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, that stretch run, week 11 to 15, is nuts. Chiefs, Bills, Niners, Cowboys, and Seahawks. And even though the start is a lot easier, Gino, 4 of the first 6 games are on the road. So that definitely makes it tougher as well. The good news is the Eagles last year were road warriors, and they're very well
Hmm.
prepared when they go to other stadiums.
And the good thing about their traveling on the road is that they only have to go back-to-back road games twice this season.
Twice,
They
yeah.
don't have
5 and 6, and then 14 and 15.
They don't have three in a row at any point.
Right.
And when you start to get into the second half, you have an even 4 home games and 4 road games. I think that sets up very well for you where it's not stacked. Let's say you have 6 home games in the first half and you only have 2 on the back half. I think it sets up balance wise really well for you. And especially off of that bye, Lou, you're going to get that extra day to prepare for Kansas City because it's on Monday Night Football. In week 2 to week 3, you play Thursday Night Football and then Monday Night Football. You have a nice chunk of rest in there as well. The Eagles aren't going to be pressed on short weeks. Outside of a couple times, it looks like that second week against Minnesota and that week following the Kansas City game when they take on the Buffalo Bills, which will be pretty tough, and against Washington after the Tampa Bay game. But if you're looking at difficult games,
Yeah.
the Buffalo Bills on a short week, man, that's going to be one of those
Yeah.
ones where you're saying, okay, at the end of the year, who are those AFC opponents we're looking at? The team you played the week before in Kansas City, the team you played a couple weeks before in Miami, and Buffalo. You got to get those 3 wins if you want to really cement yourself as not just the best in the NFC, but against
Yeah.
the whole league, where a lot of people are saying the AFC probably is a lot better than the NFC it currently is in its current
Yeah,
state.
for sure. And again, I like to have an easier schedule to start, but I
Mhm.
also didn't want every tough game to be clustered into like a 7-week span for sure.
Yeah,
But I would prefer
definitely.
it this way if it was going to be one of the two extremes, because you look at Gino in the modern day NFL, especially with the Eagles, veterans are rarely worked very hard in training camp. And I think this is a good thing,
Mhm.
by the way. I'm not saying it in a negative connotation, but you look at the preseason as well. Starters for the Eagles don't play at all, rarely, right? What did Jalen Hurts played
Mhm.
literally one drive in the preseason last year, scored a touchdown, and he was done. So, not
Yeah.
saying the Eagles were rusty. They got off to a super hot start, but I think it's nice to play a team like the Detroit Lions last year, week 1. I like that we get Mac Jones week 1 as opposed to playing Patrick Mahomes and the Super Bowl rematch that early on, because
Mhm.
again, then you can get out to a hot start. Then you're not in this hole. Maybe you have injuries down the stretch, and then you're fighting for your life against these tougher teams. So, I know everybody starts off rusty, and it might expose you to some quote unquote trap games. But to me, give me the easier opponents. Let me start stacking wins. As you mentioned, that's how in 2017 and 2022, they built momentum and they were able to get that bye week. So I prefer that outline. And again, this is very lopsided. This wasn't really well balanced at all, but I'll take this over the extreme of moving all these tough games up earlier in the year.
Yeah, figure out the rust. Get by the teams that
Yeah,
even if you do make a couple mistakes, you should get by on pure athleticism, pure
exactly.
skill, winning in the trenches, winning with quarterback play. And at the end of the day, Lou, like as tough as the schedule might be, you were the top dogs and you arguably have just as good of a team as you do last year. On
Right.
offense, you for sure do. And if the ceiling of the defense is what we think it can be, why can't you win all of these games? They're not going to, but they're probably going to be favored in 90% of them, man. I mean, outside of the Chiefs game, I would say, and maybe Buffalo, maybe one Dallas game. I don't even know if they would do that. That the Eagles are going to be favorites on many sports books in all of these games and should be the favorite to come out of the NFC and represent this conference once again in the Super Bowl.
Philadelphia Eagles 2023 schedule is out. Gino and I have our yearly win-loss prediction I'm sure everybody loves those because they're always so spot on. We're going to get into those, though, coming up. It's a fun tradition that everybody does, even if they say they don't. So we're going to get into our win-loss predictions coming up next, right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. And guys, today's show is sponsored by Built Bar. Looking for a delicious snack but don't want all of the sugar and calories? Then you need the best tasting protein bar, Built Bar. You got to try these. If you're like me and you don't want to make healthier snack choices, sacrifice taste, Built Bar is the right snack for you. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors. Churro, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream. Not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better, they're healthy. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein in every bar. Now you don't need to wait to get a box. For years, we've been saying order your Built Bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club, while you can still get your specialty flavors at Built.com. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate bar, or coconut puff. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter puff and churro puff. You can thank me later. And we thank the Built Bars for Built Bar for sponsoring the Locked On Eagles podcast today. All right, Eagles fans, we're continuing on this Thursday edition of Locked On Eagles. Shout out to the Everydayers for joining us today as we react to the Eagles' 2023 schedule, which was officially unveiled about 45 minutes ago. You know, as we looked early on in segment one, it's a pretty lopsided schedule. I think a lot of the easier matchups and all on paper, so with a grain of salt. I think most of the, give me quote unquote matchups are early on where the Eagles are heavy favorites. And then there's that gauntlet later on: Chiefs, Bills, Niners, Cowboys, Seahawks. Even before that, you've got weeks 6 through 9. It's the Jets on the road. You've got the Dolphins, Washington on the road, and Dallas. So this is a first place schedule. The Eagles have the toughest schedule when it comes to the strength of opponent based on 2022 records, and that's just what happens when you're a contender. So, Gino, let's get into it. Let's do what we do every time the schedule comes out. It's time for our win-loss predictions, and we're going to start week 1 against the New England Patriots, 425. I don't love that the NFL has the Eagles starting on the road, but nonetheless, give me Mac Jones and give me an Eagles win to start off 1-0.
I think they start out hot as well. And you said they're honoring Tom Brady, and Brandon Graham and the couple guys that were there for the Super Bowl win would like to upset that day. I think that'd be pretty cool. And that's a game you should come out and win. And if you're looking at the landscape of the AFC East, the conference or the division that you will be playing out of the AFC, that's one of those teams that you cannot lose to, because you're going to face the 3 teams that have superior quarterback play later in the season.
For sure. So we both have them at 1-0. Thursday Night Football against Minnesota, week 2 last year, when the Eagles had week 2 primetime slated for Minnesota. It was Jalen Hurts' I'm here moment. Like the first time I said, okay, I might be very wrong about this quarterback. There's something about the Vikings coming to the link, it normally results in a blowout, except for that stupid 2018 game, but I digress. I think the Eagles get a win here, and they start off 2-0. I'm not a Vikings guy. I think they were frauds last year, and the Giants proved that in the playoffs.
And they've not gotten better when it comes to the overall personnel of their team. And Kirk Cousins is playing in prime time once again, something he never seems to find a win in. And I think the Eagles were going to best them once again, get out hot, 2-0. And then you have a nice little stretch where you go from Thursday Night Football, have about a week and 4 days off until that Monday Night Football matchup against Tampa.
For sure. Monday night against Baker Mayfield, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, September 25th, week 3. Gino, I don't think this is a trap game. The Eagles do not overlook opponents. They're very good at that. This is a very mature and well-prepared team. I think they are vastly superior to Tampa Bay. And that offensive line dealing with this Eagles front that's 11, 12 deep, good luck. I think the Eagles start off hot and they get to 3-0.
You got to beat those bridge quarterbacks, man. That's what the great teams do, right? You don't let those teams stay in games. That's why you should beat Mac Jones. That's why you should beat Kirk Cousins. That's why you should go and beat Baker Mayfield. Get out to 3-0. I mean, imagine trying to sell Baker Mayfield to your franchise right now. Best of luck with that. I'll take Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Gino and I both have the Eagles at 3-0 heading into week 4, their first divisional match here, at home against the Washington Commanders. Gino, I think we agree here. We talked about it earlier before the show that they're probably going to slip up at least 1 point in the first month of the year. Washington plays them tough. This is a good roster, even regardless of their quarterback being Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett. The Commanders handed the Eagles their first loss of the season last year at home Monday night. So I think they'll lose this one and they'll drop to 3-1.
It might be a spot where on a short week you're feeling good about yourself being 3-0, and Washington always plays you tough, and they scare me more than the Giants do for some reason when you play them, and especially
Their
in
roster's
Lincoln
better.
Financial Field. That game always tends to go a little weird, and I think defensively, like, they might make some plays that keep them in that game. And 3-1 might be a very good place for them to be, because that might be the punch in the face they need to wake up and say, okay, we got to continue to stack these wins. We can't let another win slip by the wayside. So I'm with you there. I think they go 3-1 to start that first month.
And then they head on the road against Los Angeles Rams, who are getting Matt Stafford back, but Gino, they lost pretty much everything else. No Jalen Ramsey. Allen Robinson was a flop. He gets traded. Van Jefferson's health is up in the air. So their offensive line's in shambles. Their edge rushers are brutal. I think the Eagles get a win on the road, and they get to 4-1 here.
This should be the number one, I would say, destination game for Eagles fans, and we've seen how well that they've traveled over the last couple of years.
I'm going to this one. This is one of the road games I'm going to.
Yeah, our everydayers, you can meet Lou out there, but man, it's going to be Lincoln Financial Field West over there at SoFi. It's a bad Rams team. They are not what they were a couple years ago. Eagles are going to win that game, win another road game. I think they're going to do very well on the road this year.
For sure. So we both have them at 4-1 on the road against the Jets. Gino, I actually think they're going to slip up here. I think it's going to be a close game. The Jets roster was really good last year, nearly making the playoffs with some abysmal quarterback play. Even if you get the 2022 version of Aaron Rodgers, I think that's a playoff contender. On the road, I do think they actually fall in this one, and they go to 4-2.
I think they're going to end up winning this game. I think that Aaron Rodgers, you got the best that you're going to get out of him last year when it comes to the best punch that the Eagles are going to see. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be facing a tough task against that defense, but they're going to be in a close game in this one, and there's going to be a lot of Eagles fans at MetLife. We know that, especially after being on the road in LA, coming back close to Philadelphia. I think the Eagles win that one. I think they lose one game in the AFC East, and whether it's to Miami or Buffalo, it's yet to be decided.
Yeah, I think they win this game against Miami Week 7, Sunday Night Football. Jalen Hurts versus Tua to show who's the better Alabama quarterback. Remember, Jalen Hurts gets benched for Tua in the national championship game. They're close. There's no beef here, of course, but I'm sure there's a little chip on Jalen's shoulders to show that he's the guy and he's better than Tua. Who knows even if Tua will be healthy. You've got Jalen Waddle versus Devontae Smith. You've got Tyreek Hill and A.J. Brown. Both teams have loaded offenses, but the Eagles have a better defense to contain that Dolphins defense, or offense, I should say, Gino, in my opinion. So I think the Eagles get to win here, and they improve to 5-2.
Did a great job in revenge games last year as well. We have to note that. And Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, they are undefeated in revenge games.
Jalen Hurts, he might not say it, he might not show it, but you know he wants this one personally. So I think this is going to be a true prove-it game for Jalen, to prove it to himself, not to prove it to us, but I think he's going to want a best Tua Tagovailoa, and I think he does as well in primetime.
All right, against the Washington Commanders on the road, Gino, one of their only three 1 o'clock games. The NFL is definitely showcasing the Eagles in 2023. There's no way they get swept by the Commanders. Look at that game in D.C. last year, blowing out and sacking Carson Wentz, 9 times? An incredibly fun game. I think the Eagles have a similar successful outing here, and they get to 6-2.
I agree. I think they beat Washington. They're not going to slip up against them twice. And whatever team that they do lose to in the NFC East, I don't think that they're going to be swept by either of them. I think they're going to at least split and, if not, go 4-2 or 5-1.
Yeah, and they tend to split with the Dallas Cowboys. Gino, we've got them at home here, Week 9 at 425. They normally lose the game in Jerry World, and they take care of business at the Link. I'll say that continues. They need to get this win at the bye week, Week 10. You have that tough stretch coming up. Definitely continue to stack these wins. And so I had them getting to 7-2 and beating Dallas in that first game. I do think they'll split and they get that first one.
I think they take the game at home as well. The one in Jerry will later in the season, it might mean more to Dallas when it comes to potentially getting a wild card spot if they start to fall out of the NFC East a little bit. And that might be that first separator game, right? Where it's that 2-game swing. You can either go up 2 games on Dallas or you could be right there with them. And I think right before the bye, you have to leave everything out on the field in front of Eagles fans, in front of the Cowboys, man. I can't wait for that one because the next time we see the Eagles, it's going to be in a couple weeks when they take on the Kansas City Chiefs. So leave it all on the line.
For sure. So I have them at 7-2 at the bye week. Gino has them at 8-1. Week 10 bye, and God, do they have to rest up because coming up week 11 through 15, the Chiefs, the Bills, the 49ers, the Cowboys, and the Seahawks. And we start that gauntlet off with the Super Bowl 57 rematch in Arrowhead against the Chiefs. And Gino, I feel like this game, I said it to you earlier before the show, to me, this is like a mental hurdle of if you win, it's not, again, you got to do it in the Super Bowl. Like it won't be like completely exercising your demons. I mean, the Bills beat the Chiefs twice in the regular season, but they can't beat them in the playoffs. So if they win, it's not like they completely got revenge. But if you lose, like it's worse to lose this game than it really is feeling good to win it. And so you don't want to lose to the Chiefs twice. And then if you get them again in the Super Bowl, that's, this team I don't think gets in their head. But I don't know. For me, this is an important game for sure. And I think it'll be close, but on the road, it's going to be tough. You're going to lose some of these games in the stretch. And on the road against the best team in football, I say they drop this one and go to 7-3.
I think they win this one simply because I think
I hope so.
Next week might get them into a little bit of trouble with there being the San Fran game the week after that. So maybe they don't look ahead to Buffalo, but they get that extra day of rest playing on Monday Night Football off of the bye. They're going to be well rested to take on that Kansas City team. And you got to beat them eventually, Jalen, right? Let's speak it into existence now. I think he gets that win. I'm there with you that it's going to be tight, Lou. Like we know that's going to happen, but I firmly believe that the Eagles are going to beat Kansas City at some point if they want to get to that great hurdle that we talk about. Good to great. You got to beat those teams that are going to be the ones that are fighting for the belt just like you are.
Save the win for the Super Bowl. Not that if they beat them this time, they wouldn't do it in the Super Bowl.
Why not do it twice, though? Why not do it twice?
No, for sure. For sure. You've got them at 9-1, at 10-3, I believe, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay, 7-3. At home against the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, at home against the Bills, I think they bounce back. They don't lose twice in a row against these teams. The Bills are one of the best in football, but it's on the road for Buffalo at Lincoln Financial Field. I think the Eagles take care of business against the Bills. It's going to be a shootout. It's two of the best offenses in the league. Jalen Hurts followed that Josh Allen timeline and broke out in year 3, and I would take Jalen right now, I think. So at home, yeah, give me the Eagles over the Bills to get to 8-3.
I'm going to reverse jinx it. I'm going to say they're going to lose, but I have a good rationale to it because you're playing Kansas City. It's a short week. You probably left everything out there on the table if you get that win, and you know the emotional matchup that is going to be San Francisco.
Yeah, sandwiched in between two very emotional games, right?
You talk about a trap game. I mean, it might be the Eagles favored by 3 and Buffalo beats the Eagles by 4 at the end of the day. So I think as much as I would hate to see Buffalo beat the Eagles, it's going to be a good game regardless. And another one of those quarterbacks that you're saying you have to beat them if you want to get to the title. But I think that next week and what happened before that might have too much on your plate, and the Eagles drop that game against Buffalo.
For sure. At home against the 49ers, the NFL wanted Brock Purdy to be healthy, so the 49ers couldn't complain for another year. I don't think it matters, Gino. It's not like Brock Purdy is Patrick Mahomes. I don't even know if he'll be starting because I think Trey Lance or Sam Darnold might end up keeping that job. But the NFL wants this to be a healthy game, the NFC Championship rebound, or I should say rematch. And I do not think the 49ers rebound. The Eagles get this win, and they continue to roll.
I agree. I think that they go in there and that they beat Tom Brady 2.0, Joe Montana the third, Steve Young the fourth, whatever Brock Purdy is going to be given when it comes to titles. In reality, Jalen Hurts was going to beat him any given Sunday. And in my opinion, they're going to do exactly that in week 13. Why not do it again, Lou? I mean, it's going to feel so good just beating them once again. And then you have a potentially good chance to beat Dallas the following week, or could that be a slip-up game for them?
Yeah. So I've got them at 9-3. Are you at 10-2?
I'm at 10-2 currently, yes.
Yes. So on the road against Dallas, Sunday Night Football. Gino, I think this is where they split with the Cowboys. I think they lose this game. They normally struggle in Dallas. And Dak Prescott actually has a lot of success against the Eagles when you look at his career since 2016. So they split here, and I think the Eagles will drop this one.
The Eagles playing on a NBC broadcast against the Cowboys. There's more bad occurrences than there are good occurrences, and that's what I always lean on. And I think they do split it at the end of the day. And like I said earlier, it might mean more for Dallas to pick up this win than it is for the Eagles. As much as those wins are going to matter, Dallas might slip back a little bit, and they might be competing for that first wild card spot or second or third, who knows. But going to Jerry World, I just don't have a good feeling about that. I don't have a good feeling about this road trip as much as I did say that they should be great on the road this year.
For sure. I've got them at 9-4 now. You're at 10-3. On the road against Seattle, they don't beat the Seahawks in Seattle a lot of the time. This is a place they struggle. The Seahawks are featuring a nice trio of receivers. You add Jackson Smith and Jigba to the duo of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. That'll be a battle against Darius Slay, James Bradbury, and Vontae Maddox. But, I think the Eagles are a better team than Seattle. You got to beat them eventually on the road. I think they get this win and get to 10-4.
From our discussion earlier, I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna say the Eagles are going to win this one as well. I like your rationale there. It's about time that they win on the road against Seattle. And I think that Week 18 game, now that I'm looking at it, might not mean much for the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's their final slip-up spot. They might clinch this thing in a couple weeks against the Cardinals.
So Week 16, this is the Christmas game, Christmas Day against the New York Giants, and I think a present for the Eagles will be a win against New York. They have had their numbers of what coach is in, what quarterback. As long as you got Boston Scott, I think they get the win. And so, Gino, I think they get this W on Christmas, and they get to 11-4.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. That will get me to 12-3 now, if I have that correct, under my count. And I'm just not scared of the Giants. They're a run-based team right now. They still have to get more weapons when it comes to the outside to really keep up with the Eagles. If it's close, it's going to be because it's a gritty run-based game, but the Eagles are going to separate towards the end, in my opinion.
For sure. At home against the Arizona Cardinals, Gino, Kyler Murray should be playing in this one. So I guess when it comes to the time of you getting Arizona, this isn't ideal, but at the same time, they could be playing for Caleb Williams at this point. Is Kyler even playing? I'm not so sure. Even if he does it really matter? This Cardinals roster is not great. I don't think it matters. The Eagles get the win, 12-4.
If this was the Premier League, I'd be more scared because Arizona would probably be fighting that relegation zone, and they probably should be fighting to be in the XFL or USFL with that roster that they're putting out there, and especially the guy that they hired as a head coach. No way is Jonathan Gannon going to have any chance of out-coaching anybody in that building. The Eagles are going to win it. I think that secures them the 1 seed, Lou, and that's why I got to my evaluation of Week 18 that maybe they slip up in this one because they do already have home field advantage.
Got it. So we both have them at 13-4. You switch, so you have them losing to the Giants here Week 18 because they don't need this one. I'll say they win this game and they sweep New York. So we both have them at 13-4 in a different way. But, Gino, that's the thing, man. This schedule is tough for sure, but this Eagles roster is I think, the best in the NFL. So I still think they're going to be a juggernaut, the best team in the NFC. And so I'm pretty confident in this record.
You have to show that you can hang with the big boys by beating the big boys. When you look at boxing, when you look at the UFC, when the heavyweight division is at its all-time high, right? Like when Tyson was at his prime, he's not fighting nobodies. He's fighting the very best of the best. And you have to go and beat the best of the best if you want to beat the best. Ric Flair said it. If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And that's why I love how this schedule is set up, because in the back half of the season, big-time players on big-time teams make big-time plays. As cliche as it is, you win those games down the stretch, it sets you up for that seeding to get the number one, get the bye like 2017 and 2022, and it should be a great litmus test to find out how you're going to hang with maybe some of the best teams in the conference across the way that you might have to play in the middle of February.
And Gino, the Eagles play a lot of good quarterbacks this year, right? I mean, you look at they've got Aaron Rodgers and they've got Josh Allen and they've got Patrick Mahomes. And, you know, you look at, too, down the stretch, some of these defenses they play and some loaded overall rosters, even the teams that don't have great quarterbacks like the 49ers and Minnesota, And, even Miami, they've got good support systems. So this is a tough schedule. But I would say at the same time, and you even play Matt Stafford, who I think is still, I don't think he's completely shot. The Seahawks have a loaded offense around Geno Smith. This is tough, but again, the Eagles are equipped. They're going to be the favorite of most of these. And isn't it cool that, like, last year we look at the schedule and we talk about quarterback battles? There weren't a lot of them, but we were saying, do we trust Jalen Hurts against Trevor Lawrence? Do we trust Jalen Hurts against Kyler Murray, against Aaron Rodgers? Where now the tone is completely different. When I see them go up against Patrick Mahomes, I say Hurts can do this. Against Josh Allen, Hurts can do this. And that was not my tone last year. So it's definitely cool to come full circle with the schedule release.
This is the time that if anybody has anything to say about the Eagles not playing anybody, if they go out there and get 12, 13, 14 wins, a lot of people are going to eat a lot of crow, but that should be the expectation, Lou. This is an expectation season. The expectation is to get over the hump, to get to the Super Bowl, and not just get there, but win that Lombardi. And it's going to come through beating very good teams, man. And there are going to be some fun matchups. I have a lot of games circled already that I'm excited for, especially in that back half. Let's just get to September. Here we go, NFL. Great job. We're all pumped up now, and we still got 3 months to wait.
I know. Now let's wait for the Kelly Green to be unveiled, and then after that, it's training camp. So we'll enjoy the summer, but we're still with you here every single day. Shout out to the Everydayers, Monday through Friday. We've still got you until training camp and all throughout the year on all podcast platforms, on YouTube as well, and on Twitter. Follow us at Locked On Birds, at GC24_football, and at DiBiase LOE. Let us know what you think of the schedule. What's your win-loss prediction? We know you all do it with your buddies. It's a yearly tradition. I've been doing it since I was a little kid, so got to run it back on the podcast. That's going to do it, though, for today's edition of Locked On Eagles. For my co-host, Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off, as always. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching and listening. And let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.